Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Yonit Arthur. I'm an audiologist and coach. You are on the Steady Coach. Today, I am so excited to share with you another success story. This one comes to you from Payden, who experienced chronic dizziness symptoms as well as many other symptoms that he's going to share with you later in this conversation. Payden's symptoms started with a visit to a sauna and a subsequent panic attack. And he's here to share his experience, but of course, more importantly, what he did to recover from those symptoms. He shares a lot of good advice in this video, as well as some specific advice on dating that I think is very good. So those of you out there who are in that phase of your life are definitely going to want to listen to the end of this conversation. If you enjoy this conversation, or if you enjoy success stories in general, I would greatly appreciate it if you could like, share, subscribe to my channel, or if you're listening to this as a podcast, give the podcast a follow, leave us a 5-star rating. All of these things help us reach more people. My goal, my mission is to spread hope. Please help me do that. All right. Please enjoy this conversation with Payden. Payden, so wonderful to meet you, and thank you so much for agreeing to do this. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate being here, and hopefully this can help some people in the future.
I know it will, and I am so excited. As I was just telling you before I hit the record button, I know just a little bit about your story. This is our first time meeting. This is going to be my first time hearing your story. So I'm kind of at the edge of my seat already. And I think it would be awesome if we could get started with you just sharing a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I was born in Chicago, Illinois, but my family moved to Arizona when I was just a baby. I grew up here in Arizona. I did all the normal kid stuff. I was a very active child. I played sports my whole life. I graduated high school and then eventually ended up going to college where I got my civil engineering degree. I currently work as a structural engineer. Shortly after graduation, I actually moved back to Chicago, lived right in the heart of downtown. And that's kind of where everything started, was when I moved out there. Currently now I'm back in Phoenix, as I will kind of get into throughout the video, but that's, I guess, a little bit about me. Yeah.
Perfect. I was cheering you being an engineer on before we started the call too, because, it's a misconception I think people have. Sometimes they hear some of the success stories, and some people, are very spiritual or have very artistic or creative jobs. And really, I see people from all walks of life with all different ways of thinking and viewing the world get better. So I'm really excited to hear how it went for you, but I'm jumping way ahead because I guess we really need to start with what went wrong. So let's hear how things got started for you.
Yeah. So I'll kind of give you a little bit of a background before I get into everything more in depth. But essentially, I moved to Chicago. I found an apartment. I didn't want to live alone, so I found a roommate. It was this 35-year-old woman. She was subleasing her another room in her apartment. And shortly after I moved in, we actually started dating. So kind of how things started, and I do believe that my story kind of initially revolves around that relationship. After about 3 months, we ended up re-signing our lease for another year. And then shortly after, her behaviors started changing drastically. She became very emotionally manipulative. Everything I grew up believing, she was able to convince me I was either wrong or stupid for believing. Everything from the food I ate to the things I watched and even the people I surrounded myself with. So as you can imagine, I'm a whole country away from home. I don't know anybody. I mean, I have family in Chicago, but for the most part, I was doing this all on my own. And then everything that I had previously known about myself, my personality, is being questioned on an hourly basis. So there was a lot of stress initially, right? I'm away from home. I don't really trying to find myself as an adult here. And
And you were how old here?
23. So this
Oh,
was, I'm
goodness. Yeah.
25, almost 26 now. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Um, so anyways, the relationship with her is a whole other story, but I do believe that background is very important because I was living with somebody I did not feel safe with. I'm in an environment I don't feel safe with. And I think that contributed to a lot of this coming out of me. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And I'm so sorry that you went through this. This this was just a theme that came up for me today with someone I'm working with. Yeah, I'm interested to hear if that relationship persisted once the symptoms started. But I'm going to let you tell your story. So you're in this relationship, things are feeling very unsafe. Your nervous system is becoming sensitive, and then
Correct.
what happens?
Yeah, so I know you talk about on your page where there's usually sometimes a event that happens that almost triggers these things. I believe mine started somewhere in October of 2023. Me and my girlfriend at the time, we were in a sauna, and I got really dizzy in the sauna. And I was like, okay, I didn't drink that much water today. I think I had like a couple drinks of alcohol the night before. So I got out of the sauna, I waited 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, and the dizziness didn't go away. And that triggered a panic attack.
Oh,
I've had a history of panic attacks. I'm not diagnosed, but being a hypochondriac is something I'm definitely familiar with. I've dealt with this ever since I was a little kid. Went away for a little bit, came back full force as an adult. So I'm freaking out because this dizzy feeling's not going away, and that's kind of where the first symptom, I guess, came. And at first, I didn't think much of it. A couple days went by, I was okay. And then shortly after, the dizziness kept coming back, but it shifted. It was a totally different feeling. It wasn't like, oh, I'm dehydrated and all this stuff. It was, everything you talk about. It's the trampoline walking, the random, feelings where I stand up and I feel like the room might spin around me. So that's where I believe it all started. Let's see. And ever since then, it just kept getting worse. It got worse every day. And then the symptoms evolved. So as you know, it's not just the dizziness. And I don't hate the word dizziness, but it doesn't perfectly describe what you feel. It's not
vague.
dizziness.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, lack of a better word.
Do you want to
So
describe some of the things that you were experiencing?
yeah, I have a symptom list here.
Such an A+ student.
To be prepared,
Mhm.
So on top of dizziness, I had, they started off slow, but then eventually this became my normal. I had constant headaches. I even experienced my first few migraines, which was crazy. I've never had migraines. I was nauseous all the time. I had body aches, so back pain, a lot of shoulder pain. I had ear pain, but only in my left ear. So I thought maybe this is, an inner ear problem. It felt like somebody drew a line down the center of my whole body, and all my symptoms were on my left side of my body, like physical. Nothing. It was like my right side was fine, but my left side experienced things like tingling. One side felt really heavy. Um, yeah, and just all sorts of weird sensations on one side of my body. So I started freaking out, right? I think, okay, maybe I'm having a stroke. Maybe there's a brain tumor. maybe there's something serious going on with me. I also had numbness on that side of my body, excessive fatigue, panic attacks became a normal for me. It was like I was in a constant state of fear of, the adrenaline rush of a panic attack and then that horrible fatigue feeling when you're coming down off of it. I had extreme jaw tightness. So I would open my jaw and it would almost, I wouldn't say pop or click, but it was just really sore all the time. That went down to my neck. Didn't feel good ever. I even had, rapid heart rate a lot. I went to a doctor first and I had high blood pressure. I started monitoring my blood pressure at home and it was fine, but it was definitely increased like more than normal. I felt one of the worst ones outside of the dizziness is there was about a 2-week period where I felt like I had to actively breathe, like consciously breathe
Yeah.
in order to breathe, essentially. And if I didn't do that, I thought I was either going to suffocate or my body would stop breathing. I know that's not a conscious behavior. And like I would obviously go to sleep and I would be fine, but if I didn't, it would almost trigger a panic attack because my cortisol and my cortisol levels were so high. I was so stressed out. I was so hyper focused on little minute sensations within my own body. So that one sucked. Luckily, I was able to kind of work through that one, and it didn't last that long, but it was like an exact 2 weeks that it lasted nonstop, like wake up to bed constantly, like having to force myself to breathe. There was probably some other little ones there, like little other symptoms outside of the dizzy feelings, but that was mostly it.
Just those,
Yeah.
just those, sense of just, being in your own personal hell, essentially. So, I don't think you mentioned any visual symptoms. Just curious. Did you have any vision symptoms?
Nothing crazy. I've had floaters, kind of over the last 10 years. So that was nothing like out of the norm for me.
Mhm.
I think they might have been increased, but no,
Mhm.
I had no visual symptoms. I've heard a lot of stories about people who have had the vertigo, like that extreme. I'm very grateful I did not experience such extreme versions of this. So yeah, luckily no visual symptoms. No.
It sounds like you got a good dose of it, though. So, I mean, because as I'm listening to this story, I'm thinking, how is he functioning in day-to-day life with all this going on?
Yeah, so I have that here too. I essentially I wasn't able to go to the gym anymore. I started to underperform at work because I couldn't focus. Started canceling plans. My family who actually lives out there started to kind of get irritated with me that I wasn't coming around that often, and obviously I felt horrible, and I didn't even know how to explain these things. So at first I just kind of said, I can't. I'm not feeling well. I hadn't started really opening up about what was going on with me. So it had a lot of, effect on my day-to-day life. I'm a very social person. I love talking to people. Being busy for me is a good thing. And this consumed everything. And that's part of the reason I also wanted to do this interview, because not a lot of my family, I think, fully understood everything that was going on. And I don't know if anybody really ever can, other than the ones who have actually experienced it. So I'm hoping this gives some sense to why I wasn't around, why I went through the things that I did. And anyways,
That's one of the things I'm documenting here. I'm documenting, most importantly, that things get better, but also people first need to be met where they're at. This is a metaphor I've used literally 5 times today, so please forgive me, Payden, but it's just appropriate. Again, you can't lay tracks until you know where the train is what I've been saying. So you need to meet yourself where you're at before you can move forward. So people need to know he started where I am today.
Yeah.
So I'm where he started, and now there's a path forward for me.
Mm-hmm.
That's why these stories are so important. Okay, so things are just kind of getting worse, and you're sort of a hypochondriac. So do you run to doctors? Do you start trying to figure out what's going on?
Oh yeah, yeah. So that's that was the next logical first step. So originally, I spoke with my dad. I guess a little bit about my dad. My dad's a therapist. So yes, I'm an engineer, but I've had a very lucky experience of having a father who almost specializes in anxiety, depression, and things that kind of revolve around this. So at first I just spoke with him, and he's also a hypochondriac. So it was easy to bounce things off of him. And he was like, okay, maybe it's allergies. And I believe that too, right? I'm in a new state. There's excessive weather in Chicago versus Arizona. So I go to a doctor, get blood work done, right? Everything comes back normal, except for he said I was deficient, I think is the word, but in vitamin B12 and D. So I started taking those two vitamins for a couple weeks, and nothing happened. Things got worse. As a couple weeks went by, the symptoms just progressed. So I was lost again. Had no idea. I ended up going back to the same doctor. I got more blood work done, and I got a reference to a neurologist as well as an ENT. I didn't see the ENT till later on, but my first thought was brain tumor. I mean, brain tumor or multiple sclerosis, MS, I think. Yeah. And so that was the next kind of large step there. Here I have another section. Sorry, I wrote so much down.
You're so much like so many of the other folks that I've interviewed. I'm smiling because that's another thing I think people really identify with when they hear these stories. Not just the symptoms, but they're also like, is he me? Like, not, they see themselves in the people, not in exactly the same way, but they're like, oh my gosh, I would have done exactly the same thing. I also would have made extensive notes before this interview.
Yep. Yeah. But so in order to see a neurologist, I feel like anywhere, it's very difficult. It takes a long time. So I think I had an appointment set for like 5 or 6 months out. So I had this big period of time of waiting. And in that time frame, I'm doing research. I'm, looking at all possible things. And God, that's the worst thing a hypochondriac can do is Google. I think I have over my life convinced myself that I have had some form of cancer, in all ways. I mean, I never have. I'm a very healthy individual. But during that waiting period is essentially when everything got worse. And that was like probably the worst period because I had no other first steps other than doctors saying, manage your anxiety, manage your stress. And even though, yes, that ended up kind of being the main source in the moment, I'm like, no way. No way. This is something real. I've dealt with anxiety. I've dealt with depression in the past. This is not that. This is a physical thing I am feeling, and I have no idea what's going on. And I don't even know how to describe it because it almost sounds made up. It almost sounds crazy because they're like, oh, you're dizzy, you're lightheaded. I'm like, no, I'm not.
The floors are bouncing, man. You don't understand. And they're like,
I'm on a cloud. Like, you have no idea. Yeah.
And then the symptoms sound psychiatric. They sound like you're having a mental break. And so the doctors themselves are looking at you like, yeah, this person has some kind of mental illness. Mm-hmm. Because most physicians don't know anything about vestibular issues. So, and then you start questioning yourself too. You start having doubts about your own sanity. You're like, well, maybe I am crazy. And of course that adds to the fear too.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, doctors. So luckily I had good doctors. A lot of them listened to me very well. They understood the power of your brain and the power of anxiety. I kind of hid from them a little bit how extensive my like anxiety was, because like you said, I didn't want them like thinking I'm like something psychological is wrong with me.
Right. Right.
Um, but they did what they could. So I don't think I've heard stories where people had some horrible doctors. They just like brushed it off or gave them meds. Most of the time, mine listened to me pretty well.
Good. That's great.
Um,
Chicago's got some good doctors. There are some really good physicians up there.
yeah. Also, on the topic of doctors, in the middle of all of this, I was also in the middle of getting tests and procedures done on my shoulder. So about a year and a half prior, I tore my labrum in my left shoulder. So I'm getting MRIs for that, possibly getting, consults for surgery, and I'm doing injections and things to help with that pain. There was even a point where I thought maybe this was, a result of me not treating the shoulder right away. So my brain even went there, like, okay, maybe my messed up shoulder is causing some weird dizzy stuff going on.
Yeah. 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 So you go to the doctors, and what did they tell you?
Well, eventually, right, I got into the neurologist. They did all the test. I ended up doing about 1.5 MRIs on my brain. Yeah, halfway through the second one, I stopped it, essentially, because I was so nervous and so freaked out. I couldn't stay in it. I'm kind of claustrophobic, I would say, but it was just, I'm already anxious all the time. But they told me nothing's physically wrong with me. Your brain looks good. You are a healthy individual. This is anxiety, right? And this is stress. This is, there's nothing wrong with you. Just manage your stress. We can send you here to possibly get you on antidepressants or, taking things to lessen my mood and things. So I was just hopeless at this point. I had no idea what was going on with me. I mean, I had good days, but it was very, very rare when I had a good day. For the most part, it was almost every day. And
All day?
all day.
Yeah.
It increased significantly with stress. Like they would, the dial would turn up and turn down, but they were always there, right? If I had a social event I had to go to, it was up. I'm having panic attacks 1, 2, 3 times a day for months. Right. I remember I went to a Christmas party for the girl I was dating, or maybe it was Thanksgiving, some type of friend event. And I'm sitting there talking to her friends, and I'm having a panic attack. And I'm at dinner with her. I'm having a panic attack. I'm at work. I'm in a meeting talking in front of people. I'm having a panic attack. I mean, and it's not like, I'm not just I've heard people talk about panic attacks, and I want to make this known. It's not just like, oh, I'm nervous. Like, no, I'm having a full-fledged, like, my vision's very blurry in that moment. I'm sweating. My heart is racing. Like the ones you almost see in a movie, just not as dramatic. It was like that a lot. Wow. And that, that was honestly the anxiety, the panic attacks were some of the worst parts of this. Yeah.
So the doctors are telling you need to reduce your stress. At this point in the game, did you connect the relationship that you were in to the symptoms, or were you just totally like, no, those things have no relationship with each other?
I knew the relationship brought me extreme amounts of stress, a lot. And I knew that stress was not helping, and that stress made things worse. And that feeling of tension really increased my symptoms. I didn't fully make the connection though until my turning point area. In my relationship, I hadn't told anybody about what was going on in the relationship. I didn't tell my dad, my grandparents, nobody, not even my friends. Everybody thought me and her were good and happy. My dad was the only person who knew what was going on with me physically. So like the physical symptoms. I eventually called him one night. Me and her got into a large fight, and my symptoms were just out of 10. The room started spinning for me. I couldn't feel half my body. I was freaking out, and I needed something. I needed to finally tell somebody. So I called him and I told him everything that was happening on my relationship. And the first little bit of hope I got was he took a deep breath and he said, Payden, he's like, this is the missing piece. He was like, I knew something else was going on. I didn't know what it was. I had no idea it was this, but he was like, son, I don't believe anything's physically wrong with you. I truly believe that this is a result of the amount of extreme stress and the anxiety you've been experiencing for months. And this is your body's way of showing you something is out of line, something is happening, but I think you are physically okay. And I took a deep breath and I had a little bit of relief that, okay, I started believing that a little.
Wow. What a serendipitous moment. So many people would kill to have just one person in their life say what he said to you. That is remarkable.
Yeah, I trust that man very much, especially about stuff like this. I remember that moment exactly. I'm outside on a balcony on a cold day, and it was wonderful. So I'm very grateful for him for that.
Yes. Okay, so he plants the idea and you start to say, maybe. Did you at this point have a name for what you were going through, or was it just like the symptoms? I mean, did you have a diagnosis name? Did they tell you anything?
No, what there is a diagnosis that you've talked about before. I forget. Is it PPD? Is that the one? So
PPPD.
I thought maybe that. I had not been officially diagnosed with anything. There was a period where I just stopped going to doctors, waiting for that MRI. You know, I thought it was a brain tumor. I thought it was something in my head. You know, I'm like, that made the most logical sense to me.
Yeah.
So no official diagnosis, but yeah.
But if you had seen a neurotologist and they had run all the tests that you had, they would have diagnosed you with persistent postural perceptual dizziness, PPPD, no question. Okay, because I mean, I'm not going to go on a soapbox, but basically PPPD is just a description of symptoms that don't have a clear medical explanation. So that lines up with what you had.
Yeah.
Okay, so he opens up the window, and what do you do from there?
Yeah. So, actually the next day, I think it was either the next day or the day after, I got scared in my relationship. We got into an argument about something really small in the morning. I think it was a Saturday morning, and a little bit of aggression showed through her. She kind of slammed her fist down on a table, started shaking, and it freaked me out. I thought that maybe this emotional, toxic relationship might turn physical at some point. And I got freaked out. My symptoms are dialed up to 10 in this moment. I packed my stuff and I left. So I went into her room. I told her I'm going to stay with my mom for a while. I didn't officially break up with her at this moment, but I essentially left and didn't come back. And it was crazy what happened. Overnight, my symptoms physically got so much better. They didn't go completely away, but the main source of my stress was gone. And physically, my symptoms actually got a lot better. However, emotionally, that was a different story. That took me a lot longer, and that's kind of the second half of my recovery where, my physical symptoms were getting better, but they weren't going away.
Okay. Oh my gosh, this is such an important point for us to highlight here. So your body was basically talking to you and saying, no more, no more, get out. And you listened, and immediately you saw the change, but then there were repercussions. There was emotional fallout from this relationship that was still filling up your stress bucket, so to speak. And so your body basically didn't didn't let you get away with not addressing those things, which
Yeah.
is, Payden, I'm really sorry about, because I know whatever happened in the second half was probably a lot of work and involved a lot of pain. But at the same time, I'm grateful for, because it sounds like you clocked what it was. You realized, this is what my body's telling me. I need to work through this, rather than saying, okay, well, I addressed the stressor. Now I'm just going to like pretend nothing's wrong with me anymore and keep going. Your symptoms didn't let you do that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. And, I, as much as I would love to say I can blame this on this woman who didn't treat me that well, that's not true. She brought out things in me, and she brought out stuff within me that was already there, that almost needed to come out, and it forced me to look at deeper issues, things that I haven't healed in the past, things that have caused me to act the way I did, or let somebody treat me the way that she treated me. And you're exactly right. I addressed the stressor, but my body was like, we're not done. We're actually not even halfway done,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just, what a wise body you have. I know for you, you can probably agree with me now, but I know other people going through things like this are like, my body's an idiot. Like, my body's so stupid. Why is it doing this? It's a brain prediction error. You were there?
Yep, I've been there. I'd watch the videos and I'd be like, no, what? That's not me. It is. It was.
It was. Yeah. Okay. So you're out of the relationship. Things are better. Symptoms are still hanging around. So what do you do next?
Yeah. So like I said, I'd say that when I moved out, my symptom, or my like overall well-being, was at like a 5%, like super rundown. Overnight, they jumped up to about 40. So like there's a big relief, which was awesome, right? That was a wonderful thing. But the recovery process, right? This took a while. There were a lot of ups and downs. Also, on top of it, there were new stressors. I'm living with my mom. I'm 2 hours away from where I work. I had to take a train. I work from home twice a week. So 3 days a week, though, I'm on a train for 4 hours total, right? 2 hours there, 2 hours back. So there's these new stresses that are coming into my life. Luckily, I don't think that they were as bad as what I was going through, but those things also made the recovery process a little bit difficult. I say that the symptoms got better fast. The physical symptoms went from about 40% to 70% within a few weeks, maybe a month or two. The panic attacks stopped. Not completely. I had a couple here and there on bad days, but physical symptoms were just dialed down. Still there, but it's way less noticeable. But the emotional things got worse. So I believe that I was in this fight or flight state for so long that I didn't have time to really think what was going on. I was in this constant survival mode. And once I was able to kind of sit down and relax a little bit, my brain started thinking more about this. I started going through what happened, and I got very depressed. My hope faded because the symptoms were not going away and they kept happening. I thought this was going to be my new normal. It got so bad to a point where, I was never suicidal. I never thought about that. But at this time, I understood how people have those ideations. I understand why their brain could go to that area. And that thought scared the hell out of me. It that freaked me out.
Mhm.
Anyways, thankfully, shortly after I had that thought, I went on a deep dive. I found your page, my saving grace. for so long, I had nobody who understood what was happening. At least not in a way that made me feel better. And then I find this page full of people, full of stories, and I just cried. I sobbed because I finally felt like I wasn't going crazy. Something that not only related to my experience, but also wonderful tips and guides on how to improve. So it wasn't just like, hey, this is happening to us, but hey, we can get better. And that was the main turning point. I think that's when I hit the gas pedal and started going up, little dips, but up. Anyways, so in that moment, I know I already talked about the brain MRI, but this is in the area where I finally had those MRIs scheduled. Right. So those hadn't happened until this moment. And it was halfway through my second MRI why I left. I was very anxious, but I had this thought and I'm like, why am I here? This isn't something physically wrong with me. There's still a part of me that believed that there was something physically wrong. But I had found your page. I had done some work. I had been talking to my dad. I'd been talking to my mom, my friends. People started understanding what was happening with me. And I left the MRI and I said, I don't need to do this. I don't need to put myself through this anymore. And I stopped seeing doctors. Right before the MRI happened, though, I did see one other doctor. I went to, just in case other people had a similar experience, I went to an ENT where I think you've talked about this before, but essentially they put you in a chair, they put this thing over your eyes, they track your eyeball movements by inducing like medical dizziness.
Rotary chair, rotational chair. Yeah.
That sucked. That was horrifying. I'm glad I did it because, everything came back fine. My eye movements were good, everything, no inner ear thing. So at this moment, I had all of the physical reassurance I needed. And I stopped going to doctors. And I believe that me stopping going to doctors is what allowed me to move forward. I think there's a point in which going to a doctor is important. And then eventually stopping that is also important. Right? Maybe things could be wrong, right? You never truly
always start there.
Always start there. Getting that reassurance is wonderful because you have to believe that there is nothing physically wrong with you, and not just like tell yourself, like you have to believe it. And so that was, I guess, that's where that point happened for me. Yeah.
Wow. I'm so moved right now. I just, I've spent the last few years hearing stories like yours, and it just never fails to just strike me right in the heart when I hear your story. It just, yeah. So, I mean, this is why I'm talking to you right now. This is why I keep doing these interviews, and this is why I keep putting out videos, because you needed to have a place to land. You needed to know that it was going to be okay, and that there was a reasonable explanation for what you were going through that was an alternative to there's something horribly wrong with me, or I'll never get better. There's another option.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I'd say after I stopped going to doctors, things got better. My time between symptoms got more and more, which was great. I was able to start slowly reintroducing things back into my life. I started going to the gym again. I started hanging out with people. The relationship I was in was long over. I started going on dates, being social. And these things helped. They were hard at first, but a lot of your page is almost like exposure therapy, right? Getting back into it, kind of putting yourself in uncomfortable situations to normalize them again. And I started doing that. I stopped saying no to people. I started saying yes all the time. I started hanging out with my family again and going on dates, even though these things were nerve wracking and my symptoms would be dialed up in those moments. It allowed me to let them happen and not fight them. And then my brain desensitized the sensations, which almost sounds counterintuitive, but then eventually you no longer feel certain things and things got better. And I mean, this was a longer process, you know, having to force yourself to go into these situations knowing I'm going to be feeling like crap tonight. And I got to put on a smile. Right.
But
And
you
I,
did it. What helped you do it? Like, what helped you? So what helped you go into those situations knowing you were going to feel like crap, knowing you're putting yourself out there dating? I feel like I should be asking you for some tips for our viewers, because there are others in their teens and 20s and maybe 30s, 40s, 50s who are also dating, who are going through this nerve-wracking process and are like, what am I supposed to do with that? But what enabled you to do it, I guess, is my real question.
um, the first thing is always a leap. You never know. The first time I did it was because I was tired of not doing it. I was tired of sitting at home. I was tired of building Legos on a Saturday night and watching a movie with my parents. You know, as much as I'm very grateful to have had that, I'm 24 at this time. You know, I want to live and not be stranded. And also your recovery stories and your tips. And a lot of people, I think, did similar things. And that's kind of where I got the idea. I also was upfront and honest with people I went out with. I stopped being ashamed of what happened to me. I stopped being ashamed of what I was going through. And if on a date or in a social interaction, even with friends, if I felt uneasy or unsafe or not good, I would tell people. And if that might have inconvenienced the night, in my experience, it didn't. A lot of people are very understanding, or at least they show that they're trying to be understanding. And a lot of times that feeling passed quickly, where I just let it out. I just said, "Hey, I'm not feeling well right now. You know, I just need to sit down. Can we take a moment? Can we just like go grab ice cream and just like hang out?" These things helped a lot. And being honest with people and stop trying to fight the battle yourself, it was a significant improvement. And yeah, I was very
Love
helpful.
it. Love it. Own it. Own
Yeah.
it. Stop fighting reality. Just be in reality and own it.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And I think people respond to that confidence more than they would be concerned about you having a symptom.
Yeah, I met a few people who have been through, you know, similar hardships. I wouldn't say the same thing that I was going through, but it also gave people an outlet to open up to me as well. So I made some good friends out of that because it was like, oh, you're sharing something deep with me. I feel like now I can trust you and I will share stuff with you too. And that also happened with my brother. You know, during this whole thing, he's 30, so he's about 4.5 years older than me. He moved out to Chicago too. And part of him moving out here was wanting to develop a relationship with me. You know, growing up, we were far enough apart where we weren't really in school together. We weren't the best of friends growing up. You know, and he moved out here with a hope to reconnect with me. And I was not available because of all this. And he, you know, I started being honest with him. I started telling him what was happening, and it led us to have a lot of heart to hearts and a lot of times where we hugged and we cried. You know, me and my older brother were able to reconnect, and now we're we're best friends. We text occasionally. He still lives in Chicago, actually, but I think he is actually coming back, so I'm excited about that. But yeah, so there were a lot of positive things that came out of this as well.
Wow. Wow. What a beautiful story. Okay. So we covered a lot of the exposure stuff and the willingness to be vulnerable and courageous and be in what I called reality and own it. So, but it seems like, and you mentioned this earlier, that you had to do some inner work at the same time. So I'm just curious to know, how were you doing that? Because people always want to know, were you seeing a therapist? Were you journaling? Were you just meditating? Were you just spending time thinking? How did you do this?
Yeah, well, like I said, my dad's a therapist. I bounced a lot of things off of him. Eventually we kind of came to a point where, we both agreed that I should go see somebody else, right? It's not fair to him and it's not fair to me. Like, he's my dad, he's not my therapist. As much as I can ask his professional opinion about things, he'll always be biased because he's my father, and I will always probably guard certain information from him because he's my dad. So I ended up seeing a therapist, which was very helpful. She was wonderful and lived her office was really close to where I lived, so it made it easier to like have appointments. But I told her everything that happened, right? Everything about the relationship. We worked through that. We worked through why certain things happened. A lot of what I went through in the relationship was a source of issues that happened in my childhood. So I worked a lot through those things with her, as well as my like tracking kind of my symptoms, what things made me dizzy, what things made these symptoms come up, kind of like trying to figure out what were the triggers. And that was very helpful. It's actually one of my, tips or advice to people is, I know there's a lot of stigma behind therapists, and sometimes you don't get the best one. So I've learned that you have to shop for a therapist.
Absolutely. Yes. How'd you know she was the right one? How'd you know?
My body told me.
Yeah.
I felt in her office, I was very nervous the first day, and I told her everything. I just kind of dumped it all on her, and I had no symptoms. I had none. For like, it was like the first day in a while where I felt normal, and I was sitting in an office, very emotional, very stressed out, and I didn't have any symptoms. And I don't know if that'll happen for other people, but that's how I knew. I trusted her. She was probably 10 years older than me, so she was close to my age and was able to relate to me. I think that helped a lot. And I honestly think just having an outlet to talk to somebody where you're not being judged is very important. Therapy is a wonderful tool if you let it be a wonderful tool.
Absolutely. And I do want to say, first of all, it's amazing that your body had that reaction. I want people to know sometimes you'll actually see the opposite happen, and that can also be a good sign. It just depends on you, right? Some people, when you get to a therapist who has the insight to actually help you, sometimes your body goes, oh, no, safety, can't tolerate that. Like, I'm used to threat. And so then symptoms will flare. But I love the advice in general. Just notice what your body does. Try to stay out of your head with the doubts and like, is this the right like, try to focus on what is your body doing in this person's presence. I love that advice. Was it mostly talking about, or did she have you feel things in your body? What kind, again, you don't have to share any level of detail if you'd rather not, but just more generally, how did you work together so people know what helped?
Yeah, I think it's just cognitive behavioral therapy. So just talking. I had no, there were no like tests or certain things that she did with me. It was mostly just talking and going through it. Most of the time she would tell me, she's like, Payden, you do my job for me. She's like, you're very emotionally aware and self-aware human, with having a therapy background and a father who does this. She was very impressed by how I was able to realize what was going on with me. It's almost like she would say, it's almost like you just want to just talk about it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Talk about it. So for me, it was getting it out. If I don't talk about certain things, and I use this all the time in everyday life, if something's eating me up, it's usually because I'm keeping it to myself. And that's also, I think, a helpful tool even now, that allows me to not let certain things happen again.
Sure. Okay. So before we go, two really important things. First of all, how are you feeling today? Let's start with that.
Much better. I am back to 100%. I know some people on the channel say 100% is everything's gone. It's like they're back to normal. And some people say they still have things. So I am one of the ones where I still occasionally have things. But to me, it's a superpower. I think you've said that before. This is a way for my body to tell me something's out of balance. And when I used to hear that, it would freak me out in the recovery process, because it was like, I won't get better. And I want people to know that when I, at least personally, when I say I still have things, it is like a fraction of what it was. And it lasts maybe a second.
Right. So it's more just like my body said something and that was it. Right.
If I don't get enough sleep for a few days in a row, I might get, that jaw pain again. I might get the ear pain again. I might get a small moment of grabbing water where I'm like, oh, I kind of felt it, but I'm also still probably a little sensitive to those sensations because it hasn't been that long in the grand scheme of things. It hasn't even been probably a full year since all of this has, subsided completely. So yeah, I'm doing a lot better. I am in a wonderful relationship now. I've actually been on roller coasters. I've been on spinning carnival rides. I've done, all these things, cliff jumping. I'm back to my extroverted kind of outgoing self. I'm busy all the time. I'm on social plans. I am a better version of what I used to be. And on top of it, I now have emotional tools and an experience that gives me, I guess, the ability to tell people I've grown up, I think, a little bit more. I think I came back from Chicago a better person. And I would go through it again. As horrible as it was, I would go through it again because I love where I am now. And if I didn't go through it, I would not be who I am today. I probably wouldn't have this wonderful woman in my life who I'm dating now. I wouldn't have all these things because I would probably still need to go through that in order to grow, to make my bucket larger, essentially. So.
Bravo. Yes.
Thank you.
Everything you just said. Yes. And I love how you framed everything. And I'm just going to reinforce it for people. First of all, this is what recovery means to me. Recovery does not mean you live a sensation-free life, because I don't live a sensation-free life. If I walk the dogs and it's hot outside, I'll get a little bit of trampoline walking afterwards. It lasts for a few minutes. I ignore it. I don't care. On I go with my life. Mm-hmm. If I'm really stressed out, I might get a headache. Bodies talk to us. We can't expect to live a sensation-free life, but is it chronic symptoms? Is it debilitating? Is it holding you back? No. And you emerge not only not afraid, but a better version of you. So to me, what else are we going to call that other than recovery?
No, exactly. Me and my dad talk about it a lot. I went through this for so long that now I feel like I can handle a lot. I feel like
yes,
in a normal scenario, in a normal life, I can handle a lot. I've had friends and people ask me, like, how are you so patient? How are you, okay, how does this not freak you out? Or how does this not make you mad? And I'm like, this is cake. I'm like, cake. I'm
You have
like,
no idea what
yeah, you
I've
have
been
no
through.
idea. So it was a blessing in disguise, and I never would have known. And if 2 year ago me could see me now, he wouldn't believe it. But
Wow.
I'm very grateful for you and your page and everything. I know one of your questions you kind of asked about, like, what tools did I do to
Yeah.
have. There was one that really helped me, and I wanted to make sure I spoke about it. The
Please.
somatic walking. I Walking became my best friend. If I was stressed, overwhelmed, if I had a rough day, if I went for a walk, I didn't plan a time, I didn't plan a route. I just walked and I listened to, I think there was two of your somatic walking videos, and they helped me all the time. And I followed the directions. I closed my eyes. I felt my feet on the ground. I listened and I walked, and I think that saved me. That gave me
Wow.
an outlet, and that was a huge thing. So I highly recommend listening to those videos religiously.
Thank you. Thank you. I will put those in the video description so people can find them
Yeah.
easily. Wonderful. I'm so glad. I made those up. Like I made them up in an informed way. I mean, I was working with clients. I'm like, yeah, this is what we're doing. How do I make this into something people can follow along with without me there? Okay. But I've heard many people say the same, that it's just really helpful, because somatic tracking, sometimes when you're dizzy, your symptoms are better when you're still, not always, obviously, but it makes sense to do something that's moving for many people with symptoms like these. So that's wonderful.
Yeah.
What other advice? That was the second question I had. What other advice do you have for people who are going through this, or what other tools do you want to share with them?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, if you found the YouTube channel, watch the videos, watch them all. Watch the ones that speak out to you. I would use it as a tool, especially towards the end. Like if I had like a relapse is kind of what I called it, or a symptom
A
come up.
dip. We call them dips.
Yes,
Yep.
I had a dip. I would go find a specific video I knew about, a symptom that I was having, and that helped me. I would do the somatic walking. These things were very helpful. I'd also say tell people what's going on. That was the mistake I made so early on. I didn't tell anybody. I was dealing with this for months on my own, and it is probably the reason it got so bad. Or at least one of the reasons it got so bad. So communicate to your loved ones. People, even if they don't understand, they'll want to help, and you speaking about it will be more helpful to you than you think. Also keep holding on to hope. As somebody who lost it, who where it was almost gone, and hold on to it. You're not crazy. There's nothing physically wrong with you, assuming no doctor's appointments or anything. I don't want to give false information, but right, keep holding on to that hope, because it's very important. When you lose that hope, you stop doing things that will benefit you. So that was another advice. Go to doctors if needed. The reassurance is nice, but eventually stop. Eventually you'll need to stop going in order to progress in your recovery process. And then I kind of just said, this is a continuing process. Be patient. Take this time to better yourself. I would not take back the things that happened to me. And I'm a better person because of it. I grew a lot and learned a lot, and you will too if you allow it. So you have to allow yourself to get better, essentially. And then also my last advice is, if you're comfortable, talk to a therapist.
Yeah.
Talk to a
Yeah.
therapist. Yeah.
Yeah. I have nothing to add to that advice. That's all spot on advice. And I have videos that talk. I actually will have one about therapy soon. I already have one, I think, about therapy. I have videos about every single thing that you talked about, where I go into great detail and give people multi-step processes for everything, because that's how my brain works. So if there's anything you want to learn more about, chances are there's a video on my channel about it. So
Mhm.
Payden, this was such a privilege. And again, for me, because most of the people I help, obviously I never get to meet because you're on the other side of a screen, and I like put my videos on. I'm like, I have no idea. I know there are people watching them, but I have no idea who it is.
Mhm.
So it's such a special experience for me to actually get to see your face and to see you. So thank you so much for the trust and for believing me, because you didn't have to when you were at that place, that, the rock bottom place when you found my stuff. So thank you.
And thank you for having me. I can't believe I'm actually here. And for anybody who has a thought process like, oh, is this real? It's very real. I'm just a random guy
Really, we literally just met
who
like an hour ago.
who emailed her saying I would like to share my story. And so I know your brain can play tricks on you, but this is the real deal, and it helped me get back to a better version of me. And thank you for having me and giving me not only an outlet to help others, but almost a little bit of closure within myself.
Yes.
A long journey, and I'm hoping that maybe some other people in my life will be able to watch this and get some sense of what I was going through a little bit more. So I appreciate it.
Oh, you are so welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Payden, and all of you. I know you're going to get a lot out of hearing this because Payden gave some excellent advice throughout this entire thing. So please leave your questions and comments for us below. And I would also appreciate it if you could like, share, subscribe to my channel. Or if you're listening to this as a podcast, you can follow the podcast. You can leave us a 5-star rating. These things really help me expand my reach. And my main mission is to provide hope. So people like Payden, people like you listening, know that, yes, things can get better. Recovery is possible. You are not stuck feeling the symptoms that you're feeling. So thank you again. Thank you, Payden. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye, everyone.